Hi, my name is Marilee Bresciani, and I have the privilege of serving as the president and founder of the Rushing to Yoga Foundation. Welcome. This week we are talking about compassionate conversations and interactions, providing some guidelines around inquiry into, again, what we are feeling, what we are sensing, and what we are thinking, what we may know to be true, and using some strategies to really gain some clarity around all of what we are feeling and thinking and doing so that we can have very informed choices. But first, we'll practice. So please take a moment and practice your focused breathing. There's a video here for your convenience if you would like, or you may practice any of the videos that are online, or practice by yourself without the guidance if you'd like, whatever your heart desires. So just take a moment, pause this video, and when you are done practicing your focused breathing, please return. Welcome back. How was your practice? Good. Now we invite you to journal on your practice. Journal around what opened up to you after you had your experience of your practice. So again, please pause the video, get out your journals, and respond to these questions. Go ahead and resume the video when you are ready. How is your practice and your journaling? Good. You may continue to have questions that open up to you, and we are here to serve. We at the Rushing to Yoga Foundation are here to facilitate you through your integrative inquiry process to the best of our ability. So please feel free to check out our FAQs if you have time, or simply email us at rushingtoyoga@gmail.com, and we'll help you in the best of our ability or point you to someone who possibly may be able to do so. Our reminders for the week include the usual ones. That it's never too late to get a buddy in your practice to encourage you in your practice, and to also assist you in processing the day-to-day interactions that may be changing for you if you are committing to your practice. Again, there is no right or wrong, and we really do seriously encourage you to avoid judgment of yourself and of others as you engage in your practice. One mindful breath a day, a stopping and breathing in and out is so powerful. Even more so, at least from what we understand from our research to date, is practicing focused breathing at least 30 minutes a day. After 8 weeks of 30 minutes a day, we have evidence that you will literally change the structure and function of your brain. And so we encourage you to find that time in your day, if at all possible. And again, avoid judging, practice inquiry into what it is and what it is not. Today, as we practice intentional, compassionate conversations and interactions, what we're doing here is we're really, again, bringing all aspects of the integrative inquiry cycle into play, because we'll be asking you to really tap into what you are feeling and what you are sensing, and we'll be inviting you to explore your thoughts, your beliefs, your values. What do you know to be true in this moment? And also being in a place of possibility. So really using inquiry to consider something else. Consider some other possibility that might reside in a space for you. That's how you tap into creativity. Okay, so grounding our practice today. We've talked several times about how we can get into a reactive cycle with interactions, sometimes with strangers, sometimes with people that we love, sometimes with friends or family members, acquaintances, all the above. We can find ourselves sort of in a habit of moving in conversation and action without this intentionality around who we are, what we want, and what our life purpose is, or what brings us joy. So what we're doing here, again, with training the senses, is really tapping into what you are feeling and experiencing it in a moment so that you can make a different set of choices. And yes, this can be kind of weird, because I don't know about your life experience, but my life experience is I've had a lot of people tell me what's appropriate and inappropriate in particular situations. And I've had a lot of people coach me into not feeling emotions or senses in particular circumstances because it's just simply not appropriate to feel or show your emotions or have them interweave into a conversation. And there are times that I choose to not pay attention to my emotions or feelings, and then that influences the words that come out of my mouth and my following actions when I choose not to do that. When I choose to pay attention to those feelings and senses, that influences the thoughts that are in my head and the words that come out of my mouth and my choices and my actions. So the idea here around even all of this is you can choose when you practice, okay? You can choose when you practice, and then, as we've talked about, we really want you to choose the consequences or be cognizant of the consequences of your choice to practice or to not practice this. To be aware that every word I speak may or may not be listened to, but it has a consequence on me, on my body, whether I speak the words I speak or whether anyone hears them or not. So this notion of really recognizing that our thoughts, words, and actions, as we talked about in the early weeks, are all energy and information, and that energy and information is present whether it can be observed or not observed. And so what we're really doing here is just bringing around intentionality to our moment-by-moment experience of life, so that the choices we make are empowering choices to propel us into who we are, what we want, and what our life purpose is, and really actualizing that in a moment-by-moment choice-making situation. I just think it's so exciting. And yes, it can also be uncomfortable. So, what do I mean by uncomfortable? All right, well, it could be uncomfortable. Let's go back to this. It can be uncomfortable because remember when I mentioned just a moment ago that people might guide you into letting you know what's appropriate and inappropriate? And those are socially constructed, typically. And those socially constructed appropriate and inappropriate actions, words, whether or not you feel, can be cultural. They can there can be cultures embedded in cultures. And so sort of learning all of those rules may be hard one to keep track of. It's hard for me to keep track of all the rules that different societies have, whether it's cultural or ethnic or socio-demographic or regional in nature, or even at work cultures. Like different work cultures have appropriate and inappropriate types of expectations around them. Getting clarity on that could be really helpful because, again, you can move back to this and choose, okay, if I tap into my senses and my feelings, and I share my senses and my feelings in this particular environment, let's say it's at work, and this work environment really likes people to operate predominantly in the intellect of what's known and not really tap into feelings and senses. And they have communicated that to you because perhaps you've already shown emotion at a meeting before and they've let you know that that's unprofessional or something like that. Then you can choose whether to engage in that moment of time in that situation, or still be cognizant of what you're feeling and where it is in your body. Maybe journal it down on a notebook and then tend to it later. Hope that makes sense. Hope that makes sense. Okay? So all of these choices that we have, we're so fortunate because we live in the United States. All right, so what do we want to do? Okay, so we would like to do an exercise right now with you. So what we'd like for you to do is we say in your mind's eye, or imagine that you are in a particular situation. Let's say someone has upset you this past week, and you can imagine this to be the case if you haven't had anyone upset you in the past week or month, or you can simply think back onto a moment where someone may have upset you. You had an upsetting interaction, and you felt emotion, whether it was welcomed or unwelcomed. In this case, we're looking for an unwelcomed emotion, something you experienced emotion that was unwelcome. And so I'd like for you to get in a place where you can feel that. And just invite you to really reflect on what it is you are feeling in that moment. And where did that emotion reside in your body? Where did you feel the unwelcomed emotion in your body? So you have this experience of an unwelcomed emotion. You're feeling the feelings. You are locating where those feelings reside in your body and what you're sensing there. Now, what were your thoughts? What were you thinking when this experience occurred? Were you thinking, she's not listening, she's not listening? Were you thinking, he doesn't understand me, he doesn't understand me, he doesn't understand me? What were you thinking? And once you have really captured that moment, that memory of the moment, the feelings, the sensations in your body and your thoughts, I invite you to practice Byron Katie's inquiry into the thoughts. And there might be several thoughts. So if you could choose a key thought, like one primary thought where you really felt that thought may have ignited the emotion, or you had the emotion and then the thought came. You know, whatever, doesn't matter what order it is, there's no right or wrong to that at all. So what was the thought? And then practice that inquiry into the thought. So for example, you might use she's not listening, or he doesn't understand me, or something along that line. And ask yourself, is it true? Is it true that she doesn't understand you? Yes or no? Right? If yes, is it true beyond a shadow of a doubt, like you have no doubt in your mind that this person does not understand you or not listen to you? True beyond a shadow of doubt, yes or no? And if it's an I don't know, then it's probably no. Right? You don't know, so because I know I don't know that. So no, I don't know if it's true. Okay? And then think, who would you be if you no longer believed that thought, or how would you feel if you no longer thought that thought to be true? How would you feel if you no longer thought that she wasn't listening to you or he didn't understand you? How would you feel without that thought? Now, how would you feel if you believed the thought to be true? How would you feel if you believed that she didn't listen, or she wasn't listening to you in that moment, or he didn't understand you in that moment? How would you feel if that were true? Just take a moment now and pause and write what's coming to you around that exercise. And when you're ready, you can resume recording. Okay. Welcome back. Now we want you to practice the same type of practice, yet with someone who brought you joy this last week, someone with whom you had an interaction that you left feeling happy or joyful or peaceful or loved, a welcomed emotion. How did that feel? How did you feel? Where did that emotion reside in your body? What were your thoughts around that emotion? And now, I'd like you to practice the Byron Katie into that. So if you're still experiencing the joy of the memory of having an interaction that brought you joy or peace or happiness, and you're still feeling the feeling, still sensing where in the body it resided, and then still experiencing the thoughts that were associated with that, I'd like for you to practice the Byron Katie as well. And once you're finished, you can pause the video and process these two aspects further if you'd like. And then when you're finished, please resume watching the video. Okay. Having experienced a welcomed emotion and an unwelcomed emotion, and having gone through recalling how they feel, where it was embodied, what your thoughts were, and then practicing the Byron Katie exercise on each, now we'd like for you to pause the video and journal on these questions. We invite you to really think about, when you were in this process, what was fact and what was interpretation? And what did it feel like to possibly be caught up in someone's interpretation of what should be? And oftentimes we call them expectations, others' expectations. How did it feel to have someone interpret something that was different from your interpretation? How did it feel when you were expecting someone to perhaps do something differently or show up in a different way than they were showing up in that moment? How did that feel? Again, as we talked about last week, lots of times conflicts occur, I just had one last night, when we are expecting each other to show up in a different way than somebody's showing up right now. And we get angry or sad or feel attacked or feel unheard or whatever the case might be, because we are caught in this cycle of expectations and interpretations and not really thinking about what is the fact here? What do we really need in this situation? And what do I desire, which might be different from my needs? And then how would it feel if you went back and replayed that tape, this is exercise only, of that experience and thought, how would it have felt if I would have been okay letting that person have their own interpretation of what was going on, and I was okay with me having my own interpretation of what was going on? How would that have felt? What would that have looked like? Okay, so pause the video, journal, and when you're ready, come on back.